generally put their phones onto silent because you do get a signal. The tunnels were opened in 2002, and at that time all these cobbles went right the way inside, like this first photograph, but it's still a working site, so it's changed quite a lot since then. Inside there is a map, and we spend about 10 minutes at the map while I tell you the history before we move along. There might be some drips of water coming through, but there isn't any likelihood of anything falling on you. This is how we are today.
Well, you go first then. But thank you.
Oh, it's nice and warm.
Oh, what a difference.
This wire is plastic. I will tell you why it's plastic a bit later on. We have some films along the way.
I've got a bright one, if that's any better.
You just put it over there, that one, it's not too strong.
Just twist it, I'm afraid.
Yeah, can you see on the archway there, there's something white? It's a mole.
There.
Yeah. And we've got a lot of moles along the way for children to find. So you can be number one if you want to look after the moles. All these red markings here are Williamson tunnels in this area of Edge Hill. But it's only this small section that we see today, and we have given these our own names. This is called the Corner Tunnel. This one is the Pyramid Tunnel. It's shaped like that. We have the Kebab Tunnel. This is the Link, and that one is the Double. This one looks like it goes into that really, really long tunnel, but that long one is down there. This is called the Triple-Decker Tunnel. And down there are 3 more levels, and there are tunnels from each level. This is where our diggers come, and it isn't open for a public tour. They are putting in a viewing platform to take people down there. Joseph Williamson was born in 1769. That's a really long time ago now, isn't it? He was born in a place called Darton, which is in Yorkshire, near Barnsley. His father was a glassmaker, and his father worked for the Tate family. That family owned a huge workplace called Gorber Hall. But in the 1780s, the glass business went into decline. The workplace was closed down. When Joseph was 10 years old, he went to Warrington with his father and with some friends from the Tate family. And while they were there, his father died very suddenly. The adults with Joseph looked after him, but they told him he would have to work for his keep. So he got his first job when he was about 11 years old. Imagine that.
About your age.
Wow. Very young to get a job. The Tate family with Joseph came to Liverpool, and they opened a snuff and tobacco business. Snuff was a kind of tobacco you had to take up your nostrils. Not very nice. And it was in Walsingham Square, which is still in the city today. The square is. Joseph worked for them until his early 30s. He was known to be a hard worker, pretty clever, So he worked his way up until he had a good position within the business, and then he married the boss's daughter. That was a smart move. In 1802. A very different world for women in 1802. When Elizabeth's father died, Richard Tate, all his money would only go to his sons. It wouldn't go to a daughter, but it went to the daughter's husband. So Joseph Williamson inherited. It seems the sons weren't interested in the business, but Joseph had grown up in it. So he bought it and had it in his own name. And then he opened another shop with his friend Joseph Lee and became very rich and successful. In his 40s, he could have finished his working life, but he did something very new by buying all this land here. And at that time, this would have been the outside of Liverpool. Seems hard to believe today. This was a country area, a little rural hamlet with not very much in it. Maybe a few houses, a lot of sandstone quarry land. When we get around there, you can touch the sandstone. He could see that Liverpool was beginning to grow. Trade and industry was really taking off at that time. There were rich people wanting to come and live here. His plan was to pay for beautiful houses to be built in Mason Street for the gentry, the very rich folk. This would be a lovely place to live, away from all the noise, the busyness going on. You would get a great view over the city. You're high up here. And then Joseph Williamson thought, I think I'd like my houses to have lovely gardens. The land was too steep. But he came up with a clever idea of having archways built, like this one. He had a lot of archways built after each other. Can you do a wave like that? He had lots of them built, and he levelled the land above the archways, and he put the gardens there. That was a clever idea. All these big houses had cellars underneath. That was the cellar of somebody's house. And it was from those cellars that the first tunnels were dug. They were built by the soldiers who came back from the Napoleonic War in France. When they came back, there wasn't a lot of work, and Joseph Williamson gave them something to do. But then we know lots of people came from Wales and Ireland. The amount of people in this city soared very quickly. Thousands of people came. There wasn't enough room. The rich were very rich. If you were poor, you were very poor. Great overcrowding, illness, not enough jobs. It was known that a lot of the poorer people came here, and Joseph Williamson gave them work. He gave them food and drink and a fair day's money. Do any of you know what this is here? Can you guess what it is?
The train tracks.
It is. It's the first railway line to go into Liverpool.
Is that the one that the rocket was it the rocket tested on?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Joseph Williamson's men were digging this tunnel here. Stevenson's men, mostly Irish navvies, were building the railway system. And when the Irishmen got here, they could see somebody else had been there first. And when they dug down deeper, they could hear voices underneath. The Irishmen thought they had dug so deep, they had come to hell. They were very frightened, and they all came out. But because of that, Joseph Williamson and Stevenson met together. Stevenson was invited here, and Joseph Williamson told him he could teach him about building archways and tunnelling. After Joseph Williamson's death, there wasn't any more tunnels dug, and for a long time people used these to throw their rubbish in. There wouldn't be any system, no wheelie bins or bin men coming round or anything like that. Even body waste was thrown here. So there was a terrible smell. And the people in these beautiful houses complained. They wrote to important people and they wrote to newspapers saying, something has to be done. Some tunnels were emptied. Outside they built a stable yard. Do you know what you keep in stables? Mostly horses. I know this time of year people might say baby Jesus, but there was a lot of horses up there. And it was a working yard until the 1960s. We know the Lord Mayor used some of the stables for his beautiful horses and great carriages. If we look above at the brickwork, do you think all the bricks are the same? No? If you look closely, you can see a pattern. There are some small bricks. There are 4 rows of longer bricks and then the small ones again. Can you see a pattern there? It's called English garden bonding, and it's worked very well because these tunnels are nearly 200 years old. This is a butt seam, and it means if one part of this should come down, the other part stays up. When these were built, they didn't have any health and safety. Men would be injured working here, maybe even killed. When we opened our tour in 2002, our flooring was here. This would be the level that we would be beginning the tour. And this has been dug out by our volunteers since then. Are you happy to move along?
Yeah, we are.
Do you want to march this way? Are you able to follow me okay?
Yes.
Here we have 4 holes, and on this side 4 holes. These are called puglocks or pudlocks. They would have had great big wooden beams across. That was what the men would work from. No scaffolding like this. They would work to build the archway, leave it for a little while, take the wooden beams away, fill the holes up, and then start again. They would just build it in small sections. Just watch it. This tunnel on this side was found about 8 years ago now. How it is filled in is how a lot of our tunnels are found. We did get some money to have it dug out, but it's broken too much in the middle. This bit was done recently and they just found some artefacts. But further down is another tunnel, which is smaller but taller. Very strange. This is an area where we think there was a wooden crane and it was maybe attached to something there. This is a drainage system. It would act like a gutter, letting water drip off and drain away. And here we had a stage area, and they have done some filming for television. A programme called Underground Britain was made here. Did you see that?
We watched that, yeah.
Down there where there is the plastic barbed wire and a kind of doorway, this is scenery from BBC Two. They were here last year and they made a science fiction series for television called City of the City that was shown this year. That was very exciting for us.
You're finding them.
This area spans 35 feet, and over to the right you can see a chunk of sandstone, and Williamson would have sold this to builders. Any way that he could make money, he did, but he did treat his workers well. He had more houses built and a church. They found that the rock here is from the Triassic period, which is very, very old, about 208 million years old. The bricks above us are 3 foot long, 3 foot wide, weighing around half a ton each. This big chute was part of Williamson's plan, and we were puzzled. What was it for? What we found was that when the big houses above were knocked down, there were some small shops up there. There was a toffee shop called Biddulph's, a bakery, and later an early garage, and every evening after their work, they would use this as a private rubbish chute. They didn't have any bins, so they threw lots of things down here. When we came to empty it, we found plates and cups, dishes, some quite nice items you see later. There was lots and lots of ash in here. Liverpool University bought the ash, and they have used it to fertilise local parks and gardens, less gardens in the middle. We have had some plays performed here by Lipa students from McCartney's drama school. Quite exciting. There's a cute mole over this side. A nice one. When the tunnels were neglected, there would be some young people coming here as a great adventure, a dare. We know that some of the older people, they turned Joseph Williamson into a scary man, and they would tell the young people not to come in because he would come and get them. Some tunnels go down 60 feet. That's a long, long way down. As we go up here, just be aware of your height with this piece of brickwork here. Right, would you like to stand on that step?
There you go, mate.
And turn around.
You spin round for us.
If we could come in and all look that way. So we have come through here, sorry, and it's bricked up in a poor way. It's arched over. It goes back to sandstone briefly there. Your torch is better than mine.
Do you want to put mine? No.
Okay.
There you go.
There. Sorry. Yeah. Then it goes back to brick. All these bricks have been handmade by the poorer women. Oh, sorry. How does it go?
Just press it.
These have been made by the poorer women of the time. There were 2 or 3 places in the city that made the bricks, and they would have young people, maybe your age or a bit older, bringing them up the hill just in wheelbarrows. If the family were poor, the children had to stay with their family. Only rich children went to school at that time. Yeah. We think these are apprentice pieces. People were learning different trades here. In the 1980s, nearly 40 years ago, there was lots and lots of students coming here. And it was only at that time that the next bit we are going to go to was found. But if you look up here, what do you think you can see at the top?
What's that look like? What?
Styrofoam.
Styrofoam, well done. No, not many people get it first time, good boy. Polystyrene, I call it then. Styrofoam, polystyrene. If you go through there, you're in somebody's house. You are in student accommodation. Would you like to live up there? Have all these tunnels under your house?
Oh, yeah.
Right. These shapes here we call the windows, and it goes way, way down. When we go in there, you can look down it. We found they began their working life at 12 years old. At 12, you would be given a job to do. Imagine that. They would be here with a candle. It'd be quite scary. It's a little bit low ahead of me again here, and the next area there are some dips of water. Do you want to look at the climb up there? Down.
When's the climbing today? Normally you'd be up there.
This is bricked over here. We come to this arch shape, which is in a strange place. The inner bricks are shaped. Don't open your mouth there. Don't open your mouth. You get a drip in it. Yeah, even a bit more. This would tell us that whoever has put it here is more experienced than the other brickwork. It always reminds me of going to the dentist. Do you think it's a little bit like a mouth with a tooth missing? We have very clear markings here going different ways.
Pick marks.
This is called the kebab tunnel. These are foundation poles put down in the 1980s. And at that time, when they're building something new... Do you want to watch back?
Oh no, I'm craving it.
I don't think very much while you build. No. In the 1980s, when they were building something new, they would put these rods down, and then they would pour concrete afterwards. When they poured the concrete down these, they were taking lots and lots, a lot more than they should have done. And that is how this area came to be investigated. Can you touch this? This is soft, isn't it? Just move it. Yeah,
I've never used to this.
we have been used for art events, and sometimes the art is linked with the tour. We had a sign here telling us that when the trains were very new, people were quite frightened of something so big that moved. When the sign was here, the light was facing that way. The light has caused the moss and lichen to grow here. This has been used by some artists. One chap cut a pattern in it, and you had to look through something that made it go into waves. That was really nice. Another artist put eyes in it. I didn't like the eyes very much. This area was visited by a paranormal television program, and they said there is orbs and auras of spirits in this part of our tour. When we first opened, we had Halloween tours. We decorated for Halloween, and we had drama students to frighten everybody. We were told we had to do our normal tour, but we didn't know where they were going to be either. So your guide might go missing. Somebody could take your hat off, or somebody could be under the floor to frighten you. This tunnel carries on straight ahead, and it was bricked up because they don't know where it ends. It was wise at some stage to stop, and they put in this link tunnel in the year 2000. There's a lot of stairs here, and it is just a concrete corridor. The bottom steps are a little bit deep.
Big steps.
This has a very empty sound in here, and it isn't really an echo, but we often ask children to shout out. Would you like to call something? No. Okay.
Why is it been?
Joseph Williamson and his wife never had any children, any family of their own. But he was known to have great parties, social events, and invite people of all ages. Other stories say he could be quite rough and gruff at times. He had business dealings in Yorkshire, Cumbria, Bolton, Manchester. There wasn't any cars, there wasn't any phones or any gadgets that we have. He was very clever to have business dealings so far from home. His wife kept a diary. She wrote lots of things down. She wrote that she often didn't know where he was. Very different from today.
Look at this one. Whoa.
These have all been found here by our diggers. And before I will tell you about some of them, I will just say that this area is 26 feet wide. And ahead of us is another tunnel. This was full of rubbish, almost to the top. And they had to get a digger, JCB digger in here to take the rubbish out. The JCB digger was on top of that tunnel, and it didn't even damage any bricks. The sandstone goes down in layers, and all the bricks had to be checked before we began the tours. All these cream jars at the back are jam jars. Underneath is the name of a local firm still making jam today, Harvey's, originally of Aintree. These brown little jars are inkwells from an old school. And these white jars held tooth powder, which we call toothpaste. The inside of these jars is raised, which is a trick they still play today when you think you're buying that much. They're perfume bottles, and this one is school milk from the 1960s. The other bottles are very early lemonade bottles. When lemonade first came here, men thought it was a weak beer, and they called it wallop. a lot of different bottles were designed to keep the gas in the lemonade. The best one was the cod bottle. It had a marble inside. When the poorer children would find the bottles empty, they would smash them, break them, to get the marble out to play with. I'm not sure about other people. This is where we get the expression, a load of cod's wallop, from. You may not be aware of that expression. It means something of little use, rubbish, not very good. This is where it comes from. This has been a cleaning brush. Oh, there's a jaw of a goat and the skull of a rabbit and some fine horseshoes. Huge that one, isn't it? Shy horse, maybe? These are oyster shells. And oyster was very cheap at that time. This was poor man's food. Today they are expensive. There's a coconut there. Only very rich people would have coconut. A poor person would never see one. Today it is the other way around. This urn was found here under tons and tons of rubbish. Very big item. Huge. And the wheelbarrow was made for here. It's said that Joseph and Elizabeth were known to argue and squabble a lot, but he had some strange ways. He had 50 wheelbarrows, and they were often kept outside their home in Mason Street when they were not in use. But sometimes he liked to keep them in the front parlour, indoors. Not many women would be happy. 50 wheelbarrows. She wrote he wouldn't settle, he wouldn't have his meal of an evening until he had 50 wheelbarrows back. People think, that's very strange. I like to think it was a tally system. If he had 50 wheelbarrows, he had 50 safe men. They couldn't come back on their own. Maybe.
It's just got a magnetic piece.
It was known that Joseph Williamson would mix with the very rich people and the very poor people on equal terms. He would come here in old clothing and he would work with the men. He would be quite happy to be one of the boys. Other times he would arrive dressed in the finest, most fashionable clothes of the day. So from one day to the next day, you didn't really know. He invited some of the rich people of the city to his home to a great banquet. I think they would get dressed up and feel very pleased. And when they arrived, he sat them at strange tables and only gave some broth, a kind of soup. And that was all. And it was known that some people decided to go home quite early. The people who stayed with him, he took to another part of his home where there was the great feast. And at the end of the evening he said, "Now I know who my true friends are." He was testing them. There had been charitable groups set up to give money out to the very poor, and they would go around the rich people to ask for help. Williamson hardly ever gave any money. He had lots, but he was known to ask, "How many men do you give work to?" Maybe he felt he was doing enough. The work went on here for 26 years. Men were getting self-respect. They were learning trades, They were getting food and drink and pay. We believe there are other buildings in this city built by his workers. We think that Albert Dock was built by his men. It was shortly after Joseph Williamson's death. This is all being household items. On that blue one. Most people know this famous willow pattern. The green one is Italian Mallorca. And here we have the basins that say Liverpool Royal Infirmary on the front. There is an old Liverpool Royal Infirmary hospital still about 10 minutes from here, but this may have been an earlier building. That was a very early sink, very decorated. These I call the IKEA range. Joseph Williamson died in 1840. And his wife had died a number of years earlier, and it said he did really miss her, and he only lived under his house after her death, with only very few things around him. But they found paintings and furniture of great value in his home. He was found dead by the housekeeper who had looked after them for many years. His assets came to around £400,000 in 1840, a lot of money, would be millions of pounds today. And it was given to nieces and nephews and friends and family. The housekeeper was given a farm in Cumbria in his will, and we were a little bit puzzled why she would get a farm. The researchers from here went to Cumbria, and they found that part of the farm is still there. They found it had belonged to her family. Her father had come under some money difficulties. Joseph Williamson bought the farm so they wouldn't lose it, but he gave it back in his will. He was buried with the Tate family, and his grave was found when they were building Liverpool 1 in the city centre, the shopping complex. It would have been the grounds of St. Thomas's Church, where he was known to be seen. His grave is down there today, after Liverpool 1 bus station, in a small nature garden. We think he has an important part to play in the history of this city, so we are happy it's there. We don't get any regular funding, and we only have 2 people who are paid. The rest are volunteers. We do the guiding, the reception, the cafe, the charity shop, run functions and events, some research, some digging, lots of things. You can join the Joseph Williamson Society for an annual fee, but like a lot of small places, we beg, borrow and acquire as you go along. Down the stairs is the well tunnel. The water would never have been very clean. He gave his men beer. It was much safer to have the beer than the water. He wrote his men worked harder as long as they had a couple of beers. We think that this is a garden area. We think it belonged to one of his properties. If you want to put your hats in there, but I haven't quite finished. These paintings are by an artist called Herdman. is where we have gone in today, and this is here, showing his fine houses and a series of arches that support the gardens. These excavations were about 8 years ago, we are here, and they found portions of tunnels and a kind of roadway, and these are underneath student accommodation over there. This area is used for functions and events that bring us some money in. We have raves and gigs here. We had plays, carol concerts, psychic nights, table fairs. You can get 200-300 people in here. It's nice for an event. It is quite easily changed. On the table here is a copy of a letter written by Joseph Williamson in 1822. His brother-in-law was a Minnesota.
That's where we were before, weren't we? Just off the back up there.
And when Constance died,
For anyone.
If you don't see it.
I like to finish my tour by saying that this letter was found by my son, and here we come here a little bit now. He is getting married to the researcher from here, and I find it very amusing that my son's second name is Joseph, her second name is Elizabeth, like Elizabeth Tate, and they met here. My father was born on Joseph Williamson's birthday, and he was a bricklayer. So I am made to be here. I'd like to thank you very much for coming along today. And if you enjoyed our tour, please tell somebody else about us. And if you didn't enjoy it, don't. Thank you very much.
Thank you.